About 2 nights ago, I went to see the new Wicked movie with my family who was in town for Thanksgiving. I arrived back to my house around midnight. I live alone in a shared but divided house with two other tenants living inside. One is upstairs and one splits the downstairs with me, so there's 3 apartments total. My place is in the back of the house and has a back porch you can enter through after walking up the whole driveway. When I got home, I sat in my bedroom and did about 20 to 30 minutes of work on my computer. During this time, the house was very quiet and I kept hearing a man's voice continuously talking. Now, keep in mind, the tenant above me is a man and I know his bedroom is right above mine because I previously lived up there. It sounded like he was talking on the phone just because of how long and continuous the talking went on. I tried to listen and figure out where the voice was coming from, and I couldn't exactly pinpoint it, but it was either coming from through the ceiling or on other side of my room. Now, it must be noted that my bedroom connects to the porch with a door that I have blocked with my dresser. There's a main door inside the porch that you use to get into the house, but there's also this strange door connecting to my room. I couldn't make out the words, but because of how firm and continuous the voice was going on, I figured it just had to be coming from my housemate upstairs. It's the only thing that made logical sense. I just kept on thinking, though, I'd never heard a single voice come through that ceiling before. It's not that thin. Whatever. I'm worrying about nothing. After about 20 to 30 minutes of computer work, I got up to go to brush my teeth, feed my fish, get ready for bed, etc. I come back into my room, turn off the lights, and get in bed. Keep in mind it's been about 45 to 60 minutes since I first heard the voice and I could still hear it. Damn, I thought. My housemate is chatting up a storm on the phone up there. Oh, how wrong I was. After about 3 minutes of laying in bed, I all of a sudden heard my porch door creaking along with the talking man's voice. It has a very distinct sound that I knew immediately was my porch door. I crept across my room and put my ear to the dresser, the door that connects to the porch. Sure enough, the talking was coming from inside my porch, and I could hear the door moving and shuffling inside my porch along with it. My heart absolutely dropped. All the lights were off in my house at this point, so I had a sort of sneaky advantage to creep around my house and get a view of what was going on. I crept down my hallway and peered into the kitchen, which the porch leads into. Across the kitchen, through the door, and in a streak of moonlight, I just see a man with long, scraggly hair sitting curled up in the center of my porch, turned around with his back to me, muttering out loud to himself and rocking back and forth. My fight or flight kicked in, and I immediately ripped open the door and started screaming at him to get out and try intimidating him. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have made myself so vulnerable without a weapon handy, but like I said, I was just in fight or flight. I can't explain my actions in this moment other than reacting out of fear and determination to scare him out. Anyways, this dude didn't even react to me whipping open the door and screaming at him. Not even a flinch. He simply turned his head to the side very slowly and said, "My name is Evan." This freaked me out so much for some reason, especially because he still hadn't turned around or shown his face. I said I don't care and kept cursing at him to leave, and he slowly rose up with his hands up and said, I know. I'm hiding. He wasn't saying it in a pleading way, though. He said it with this almost childlike, playful tone that freaked me the absolute fuck out. I hated this. The fact that he kept trying to reason with me and act so mysterious while still not even turning around to show his face just pissed me off, honestly. Who do you think you are, bro? I ran him out of the porch and was just threatening him. Now I assume it was just a homeless man who was under the influence of something, as I do live in an inner city area and it's common to see homeless people near my street, but man, the sight of seeing him in my porch and knowing he was in there for at least an hour beforehand while I was sitting right there just freaked me the fuck out. I was in full-blown defense mode by the time I opened that door, and I wasn't willing to waste any time to do a character dive on the guy. No imaginable situation would permit anyone to be in my porch like that at that hour. Needless to say, I'll be double-checking my porch lock every night from now on, lol. It's funny because having my room connected to the porch, I always had this horrific intrusive thought that I'd hear someone in there one night. Looks like it came true. So please, Evan, let's not ever meet again, you creepy bastard. It was around 9 or 10 p.m. and I, M16, was skateboarding at a skate park around 5 minutes away from my house. I don't have a car yet, so I usually skate there. Usually I do have to deal with some creepy or strange people because I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, in a not great part of town, so that's usually a common thing here. This night I went alone and there was only one other person at the park who I had met there for the first time. We had a good time and skated for around an hour, just me and him. Eventually, a guy with a child came walking into the skate park and came up to us. The first weird thing I noticed is the child had no shoes and was wearing pants and a t-shirt, even though it was pretty cold outside even for me with a hoodie on. Another thing that was strange was he had what seemed to be a gun with him. I noticed the guy had some tattoos and was around 6 feet maybe. This guy starts first by talking to the guy I was skating with and tells him that he cuts hair and if he ever needs a barber to hit him up. My friend says thanks and he walks over to me and says the same thing. I just say, alright, thank you, and thought he would leave, but no. He asks if his son can try my board. I was a little hesitant at first, but I said alright. The child didn't seem to want to even try it. He had to pick him up by his arms and put him on it. Eventually, the child stands on it and is trying it. While he's doing that, the guy turns to me and repeats himself saying he's a barber and that he's just here with his nephew. I thought it was really weird that he said he was his son first and now he's saying nephew. Skipping like 10 minutes, my friend leaves me there and the guy is still there. He asks me to do a trick for his nephew and while I'm doing it, forces him to watch me by holding his head in place towards me. After I do it, he repeats himself again saying that he's a barber if I ever need a cut and that he's here with his son. I then ask, didn't you say he was your nephew? To which he says, oh yeah, sorry I get it confused sometimes, my bad. I just shrug it off and tell him I need to go. He then says yeah, his dad's coming to pick us up now. So I'm leaving and I look back and he is getting into a car. I'm not actually going home yet. I was just skating to McDonald's to have something to eat. I then see the car drive off, but instead of going the opposite direction, he goes the same way I'm going to the same McDonald's. He comes up to me again and says, hey, what a weird coincidence, I was hungry too, or something like that. At that point I just leave, but not before he repeats himself again and asks for my number, but I say no thanks. Really weird guy, just wondering if anyone has any theories or anything as to what was going on with him and this kid. This was a long time ago now, so I apologize if the details are slightly foggy. This memory popped in my head tonight, and I just genuinely felt it needed written down somewhere. It was a crisp autumn day of my 3rd grade year. I was heavily bullied and didn't have a lot of friends. I valued the few I did though. Luckily, my teacher that year, Mrs. Rabine, put us in alphabetical order by our last names. This put me near my friend Tom. Tom is the kind of friend you keep to the grave. We were chatting that morning when Mrs. Rabine introduced us to the new student Charlie. Charlie was fairly gaunt and poorly dressed, not in the unfashionable way, but in the way that his clothes were very battered, like they should have been replaced many months ago. That's when Mrs. Rabine said the unthinkable. Charlie's last name would split up Tom and I for seating. Disappointed, I introduced myself to Charlie, hoping to gain another friend. Charlie didn't speak much. Hindsight, it was likely nerves. Over the next coming days, Charlie started making me uncomfortable. Not in a way I could really put my finger on why. I remained kind though, as I was desperate for friends. After lunch, when all of the students would attend recess, I typically stayed back in the lunchroom to help clean up the cafeteria and take out the trash. This was a great way to earn an extra slice of pizza. On this day, though, I was sent outside. On these days, I would typically sit on a swing and play my Game Boy. It was something I could do by myself. Charlie approached and sat on the swing next to me. I showed him my Pokemon game that I was playing and explained what I thought I knew about the game to him. That's when Charlie asked to kiss me. Freaked out? I said no and stopped talking to him. Over the next coming days, Charlie would become more and more overbearing. Bringing me jewelry he obviously stole from his mother, begging me to be his girlfriend. I was young and didn't know how to handle it. Tom told him to leave me alone, which helped a little bit. Unfortunately, we had a line dancing day in gym that week. We weren't allowed to tell people no if they asked us to be their partner. I saw Charlie approaching and panicked, and luckily Tom and I paired up right away, saving me from the awful situation where I would be forced to dance with Charlie. Charlie shortly thereafter would start threatening Tom. Kids in the 90s would threaten to kill each other all the time. This wasn't exactly alarm for concern in the way it is now. Charlie's rage would get worse and worse anytime someone else would talk to me. It was becoming increasingly concerning. Then one day he brought a knife to school. I was scared, but also too scared to say anything about it. So I kept his secret. Unfortunately, on this day, I was sent outside for recess. I would have much preferred to clean the cafeteria. On this day, Charlie's sister, whom I cannot for the life of me recall her name, decided to call me ugly. Honestly, this was pretty normal for me to be bullied, so I shrugged it off. That's when Charlie punched his sister, chased her down, and kicked her in the face. After the recess advisor broke up the fight, they asked those around what happened. That's when I raised the concern that Charlie may have a knife on him as well. They searched his pockets, and he had a small fold-out knife in his pocket. He was expelled that day. I occasionally search his name on Google, expecting to see his mugshot pop up for some sort of crime. I never saw him after that, but Charlie, let's not meet again.